Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Dan Marschner. I'm the Director of International Admission. And so it's a real pleasure for me to be here with all of you. Of course, we'd love to be there in Delhi with you. For those of you who are in Delhi, thanks to all of you for joining us virtually as well. Today's session is talking primarily about the concept of opportunities for career development and opportunities to really enhance students' abilities to work in a virtual setting, and talking about the innovation and adaptability that was demonstrated by some of the phenomenal panelists who are here with us today. So I'll serve as moderator for this session, and I'll go ahead and have my fellow panelists go ahead and introduce themselves. We'll go ahead. Lisa, you want to go first?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Lohberg, and I am Director of Study Abroad at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, California. Happy to be here.
Okay, and then Veronica?
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here with you. My name is Veronica Fatima. I'm a project assistant at the Beijing Center, which is in Beijing, China.
Thank you, and Jessica, certainly last but not least.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Calhoun. I'm the Associate Dean of Admissions and Alumni Affairs at the American College of the Mediterranean, which is based in southern France, and also at Study Abroad Institute, the Institute for American Universities.
Okay, thank you so much. If we go to the next slide, we'll briefly talk about how we'll do the rest of this session today. So Lisa will start first, and again, talking about the idea of what it meant to be able to shift to these virtual experiences. Veronica will talk a little more about her experiences with the internships and placements at the Beijing Center. And then Jessica will talk about collaborative consulting projects, and then again, we'll kind of wrap things up from there. So at this point, we'll go ahead and pass it to Lisa, and Lisa will talk about her efforts to shift to virtual experiences in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Great. So we pivoted from in-person to virtual experiences during the pandemic because we could no longer send students abroad. So like many universities, due to COVID, our university had decided to suspend international travel. So these virtual internship programs were developed to address a particular need. Because everything else was moving to online, the classes, student programming. So we sought to do the same with international programming. And we put together a portfolio of virtual internship offerings, and now we work with our Career and Professional Development Office to link these virtual internships to a one-credit internship online course. So credit for the experience is being added to the student's transcript. So how it works for our campus is that we package it so that students access these virtual opportunities through our study abroad office. And so our office is really that one stop, and then we are connected with different partners. So very similar to an in-person study abroad experience. And so two of our partners are here today to discuss the programming and specifics, and of course it's continuing to evolve. So we've done this for 2 summers now. And while it was a very quick pivot originally, it is clear that virtual experiences are becoming a permanent part of offerings at universities, which we feel can really connect more students to international education, increase exposure to various career fields, and really help them gain experience on their resume. So, we're also seeing that virtual opportunities could provide experiences before a student goes to university. So throughout this session, we'll be discussing how these virtual programs are carried out, the infrastructure, and how students are connected to opportunities, and really what they can mean for students' career preparation and really international connectivity. So we can go on to the next slide. And so we, like I said, we packaged it so that students could access these opportunities kind of as a one-stop. So they weren't having to, find them. We had really crafted a portfolio working with our partners, so students could access our study abroad office and then be connected to these opportunities worldwide. So on the very next slide, we have an example if we move to the next slide, we have an example of a student who participated in this very innovative environment. So this is Alexander, who's a political science major from Los Angeles, who really jumped at the chance to do a virtual summer internship that was based in China. So he did work that was based in Beijing for the World Wildlife Fund. And one of his takeaways was, I now have a solid foundation in the new age of online work. I feel more prepared for my next online opportunity. And another one of our students who had an internship assignment in Barcelona said, I was very grateful for the internship and what I got out of it and all the people I worked with. But I'm now even more interested in marketing. So she had switched majors, which I think says something about the academic impact and career trajectory for students who are participating. So these are really valuable and impactful experiences in a virtual space. So on the next slide, I'd just like to talk briefly about outcomes, because now we have several cohorts of our students who have participated in these virtual experiences. And what we're seeing is that they are preparing students for the future of their work. These internship experiences are really mirroring the modern workplace. They are preparing students for the work that they will soon be doing. So it's helping them, navigate this environment, work in different time zones, and really have a glimpse of what their future career may be, because it does seem that the hybrid remote workplace is here to stay. So, students are now getting the skill sets that we think employers are now seeking. So, working with online collaborative software, and figuring out new ways of engaging clients and customers and colleagues. So we now have some examples of how these virtual global programs are being designed and carried out. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Veronica to provide more details on how a program is structured. And you can probably go to the next slide for her too.
Okay, so I will talk about a virtual internship program, or we also call it virtual intern abroad program, and how we designed it and shaped it in the way that students can get not only professional experience from the program, but also academic experience and support on site. So virtual internships do not intend to substitute a face-to-face internship experience, but rather to provide students with a practical, professional, and academic experience that will allow them to achieve their desired skills and goals. We already ran 4 programs, and the duration is different. In summer it's 6 weeks, and during the semester it's a full semester. The actual internship work takes 2 to 3 days per week with a schedule regulated by the employer, which is actually usually pretty flexible because there is a time zone difference, so anyway students have to manage their time by themselves. And thus it's a more result-oriented work. From the career development support, we provide the students with an orientation session and online workshops on resume building and job market, and bi-weekly meetings with the internship coordinator when students could share and reflect on their experience with employers and at their workplace. At the end of the program, students can participate in a virtual internship showcase, which is a reflection session on their takeaways from their internship. As an academic part of the virtual intern abroad program, students participate in bi-weekly lectures on different aspects of the related fields to their internship, such as culture, business, or economy or marketing. And also language tutoring sessions if they want to improve the language of the country where they're doing virtual intern abroad program. Some specific points about the program are that the program intern abroad program has a tuition fee, and usually it's not for credit, but upon a student's request it can be for credit. The internships are unpaid, and actually the very important point of a virtual internship program is that it allows to offer more scholarship opportunities than for in-person internships because it gives more opportunities to reach out to the students who cannot travel for various reasons, and also logistically it's much easier to provide students with different scholarship opportunities. And now I will talk about the placement and different placement organizations. So please move to the next slide. First, I will talk in general about the placement opportunities. Well, of course, for the virtual programs, placement opportunities are more limited than for in-person internships. Here on this slide are certain examples of the positions that are offered to the students or where they intern. And some of organizations with which we cooperate, they switch to virtual work themselves completely, so they don't have offices anymore, and for them it's actually quite easy to accept students on a virtual basis because they all work remotely, so they have plenty of opportunities. But some organizations still work from the offices, so but they still offer some virtual opportunities because of the travel restrictions and because of the students cannot actually physically at the workplace. So most of the positions are in social media marketing, sales, research, evaluation, and database and web development. So I'll not go too deep into that, and I will move just to the next slide about the application process and how students apply for the internship. So first, students go through an interview with an internship coordinator. During the interview, the internship coordinator helps students to identify their desired skills and roles, and actually their interests, what would they like to do and achieve during their internship. Then internship coordinator helps students to review CV and cover letter before sending it out to the employers. As a result of an interview with the internship coordinator, student is given a choice of 2 to 3 placement opportunities that the internship coordinator finds fit to students' interests. Usually we advise students to apply for all of these placement opportunities because it gives them more choice, and as we mentioned before, sometimes students actually change their preferences during the interview and choose completely different organization than what they initially wanted to choose. Then we give employers contact information, and students apply directly to an organization. Sometimes there is an additional interview, and usually we supervise this process, but it's a pretty independent process between the student and the employer. And then student is getting an offer or rejection, and then student should accept or decline an internship offer, or if there are a few offers, choose one and accept it. And after the student is placed to an organization, the program starts for the student. And then we'll move to the next slide. I will talk now about some students' feedback. Well, actually, Lisa already talked about students' feedback. So I will just share some more feedback from the students. Virtual internship helped to develop internet literacy skills. I learned how to communicate in a professional setting virtually. Virtual internship broadened my cross-cultural and global perspectives. Virtual work allowed me to open a window into the international community to learn from during lockdown. So this is just some feedback from our students, and actually given that pandemic is still going on and many opportunities for most of the students will still be virtual. So this is actually a great chance for them to develop themselves professionally. And when we move to the next slide, I will talk about some challenges that students face and some solutions that they came up with. So talking about challenges, well, first, all students mentioned time management and working simultaneously on different tasks, but also a big challenge is time zone difference. So usually students have to work from within different time zones. Sometimes the time zone difference is very big. For example, with China it can be like 11 to 12 hours. But it helps students to work more independently and be more result oriented. So as a solution, students mentioned making a list of tasks and deadlines, prioritizing the most important ones. Then students mentioned lack of experience in the field, and as a solution, they mentioned asking questions, doing research and studying, which is actually a bit more difficult virtually because they don't see anyone physically whom they can ask for advice or get some extra training. Another challenge is adapting to the fluid and often demanding nature of the workload expectations. This is actually very important because sometimes it's very difficult to regulate workload virtually. Again, because it's more result-oriented and all people work with a different pace. And students, as a solution, found a solution to be proactive and self-sufficient when receiving minimal directions. Another challenge is incompatible software and language barriers which delayed work initially. So students advised to switch to alternative platforms and teaching keywords in each other's language. So it's all about actually research, self-improvement, and prioritizing. So that's all I wanted to share about how we shape the program, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end of this presentation.
Thanks, Veronica. I'm going to just pivot with the virtual experiences slightly with the virtual consulting projects. They are slightly different in a variety of ways from virtual internships. As an overview, virtual consulting projects are where we group students together, they work in teams, and the students then will engage in an industry-specific consulting project, which is led by a professor, an area specialist, and then we partner the students with international organizations. The organizations themselves present a problem to the students through a formal presentation to the students. And during this formal presentation to the students learn about the organization. They do a virtual tour of the space, and they get a little bit of insight of who they're going to be working with. And the company will, the organizations do present the problems in advance to the host organization, so the problems can be fleshed out, make sure they're suitable for the students. The students then will apply consulting practices to make recommendations to the organization on how they might approach resolving the issue at hand. And at the end of the experience, the students do a final consulting report, which is a written report, and then they also do a concise formal presentation to the organization virtually. So this would be in front of the managers and accompanying staff. We go to the next slide, please. These are similar to the virtual internships. These are very supported experiences. The students aren't doing it alone. They have multiple points of what we call engagement or areas of support. The first point is the international organization. So the students do meet with them virtually throughout the process to do check-in meetings to make sure that their ideas might be on track or bouncing new ideas off the international organization. So they do have frequent contact with the organization. We also have the faculty member who gives them the framework on consulting practices and guidance on how to write a formal report, and then also guidance on putting together a formal and concise presentation at the end. We also have an area specialist that works with the students that can give the students insight that the organizations may want to hear, but that the faculty not necessarily the faculty wouldn't necessarily be able to provide that, given that they may not be involved in this area or in this industry. So this person also serves an important role. Some examples of some consulting projects we've had is one of them, we have a sustainable fashion marketing or manufacturing consulting program. And this is a slow fashion company that was started in Spain. Slow fashion is the exact opposite of what you might think as fast fashion, which are the large providers, large employers, the large manufacturers who put fashion out there en masse. So these the students would work with the group on sustainable practices, sourcing local materials, and another consulting area that we had was digital marketing in response to COVID-19. We did have a variety of these consulting projects available for students, since this was what was needed at the time. But students would learn, just as Lisa had mentioned and Veronica, students get into certain things and realize that this might be a new area of interest for them. And we can go to the next slide. And in looking at the impact of these experiences does have a lot of crossover with international internships. One unique aspect of consulting projects is students are grouped together. They are interdisciplinary, meaning that students are strategically grouped with others who study in different areas. So we may put an engineering student with a business student and also a communications student. We may put them in the same group because these students all contribute different areas of expertise. And this is really important in the modern workplace, as we keep referring to, because the collaboration in modern workplaces usually and many times occurs across areas and across departments. So it teaches students how to listen to others, to defer to expertise, and also enable them to shift thinking. It also teaches the students about team dependence, and that these projects are team projects and they can't be accomplished by one person, but rather by the team. It also provides the students with the necessary skills that are needed to succeed in the modern workplace. And I know that the first few points were covered, but I will hone in on the last point there in gaining strong written and communication skills. So the students have to learn how to communicate with a variety of parties, one of which are their peers, so those who are on their team. The other is with the area specialist, and the other is with the faculty, and finally with the organization. So the students get experience with dealing with different parties and the different type of communication skills that are required to communicate successfully with each of those areas. And the students really do learn how to be clear in their communication through the development of their, let's say, elevator speech, where the students do have to be clear and concise with the organization. And also that clear and concise, those clear and concise need to come across in that final presentation. So it's not a drawn out presentation, it's really to the point. And the last point is also really a unique aspect of virtual consulting projects, because you have to consider that this is actually a role reversal for the students. In this experience, the students are actually serving as the experts, while organizations are the clients. And so what that does for the students is it really puts them into a different leadership space, allowing them to, or encouraging them to develop their leadership skills and also develop confidence in their skill set and in their abilities. So that's an overview of the impact of consulting projects and how they are run.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for you sharing your expertise. We can go ahead and go into the next slide. That would be great. And we certainly do welcome any questions from the audience. If you do want to ask any more specific information about these types of projects, please do let us know. We're happy to address those in the chat. But I think one of the things that's really important to recognize is that, of course, we are very much still in the midst of a global pandemic, and so we do anticipate that these kind of experiences will continue in the near future. And I think, one of the things that's really important to recognize too is, I think, it really reinforce how global interconnected our world really is. If we look at things like the development of COVID vaccines, for example, and the fact that the research was undertaken all around the world as well. So I guess one of the questions I have for the three of you is, one of the things when students are thinking about these kind of intercultural experiences, a lot of times they're really excited about being able to connect with people around the world and being physically present in another culture and experience things that way. And so I'm just kind of curious what kind of ways that students who've been involved in these virtual projects have talked about intercultural experiences and how those have developed. So it's a question for all three of you. How have students demonstrated intercultural experiences in a virtual context?
Yeah, so I'd just like to chime in about that because our student example, Alex, in reflecting on his experience, he talked about his computer skills and his video communication skills, but he also really honed in on the fact that the internship absolutely furthered his knowledge and admiration for Chinese culture. It really gave him insight, and so I think that last part is really compelling because it demonstrates that it's also not just about skill sets, but really cultural exchange, and that can come across virtually, and that these virtual experiences can connect students to the world no matter where they are without the cost of travel. I think the cultural piece really came through for all of our students.
Thank you. Jessica, Veronica?
I was just going to mention that throughout both of these experiences, that there are both experiences offer a more formulated explanation of intercultural management as well, and so that is framed within and rooted within the country that they are going to be doing their virtual experience. So the students do get background from the faculty on what it is like to do business in these respective areas. So they do learn a lot from the more formal side in partnership with the intercultural exchange that they're going to be receiving on a day-to-day basis in their experience.
Well, I also would like to add that besides just interaction with supervisors and colleagues that are usually all from different countries and very international, our students are also participating in the academic part of the program where we have lectures about the culture of the country and economy and marketing. So they actually learn about it during the lectures, and also as I mentioned, students have an opportunity to learn the language, and usually their language tutors are local students, so they communicate with them, and this really makes it very intercultural and diverse.
Thank you. No, it's very, very, very helpful to understand that perspective. And I think the other thing to really note here too, and this is a little bit more on the next slide as well. The reality is, of course, we're in a pandemic that probably, hopefully, will be coming to a close in the near future, but it's hard to anticipate that, of course. And so I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, on some level that we can anticipate that these types of experiences will continue even when students are more able to travel freely. And so I'm just kind of curious, what you think would be the long-term possibilities with these kind of virtual experiences? Do you anticipate that they'll continue to be offered in the future, and kind of how would they differentiate themselves from in-person experiences?
Yeah, I'll just say briefly, while I know a lot of our students are anxious to get back to an in-person experience with study abroad, we do believe that these virtual experiences are here to stay. The access point that they provide for students, the lower cost, there's just so many benefits that we've now seen, And we see the long-term benefits on their career preparedness and all of those things. And so I'm envisioning that these experiences are going to start being stacked, where it'll allow students to even have more than just that one, one experience, but they can do, multiple countries or different types of organizations. So I know from our perspective, they are very much going to be a permanent part of our offerings.
And I also think that these virtual experiences have become, they're not solely for one type of student anymore. They really are for a really broad student base. And the pandemic has really made these experiences more acceptable to many students. And in looking at some of those barriers on the slide, it's not only for the students who can't afford to go, but it's also for the students who have commitments and can't travel. They maybe care for a parent, a grandparent, or siblings, but also for the students who legally can't travel. So immigrants, refugees, they still have access to these really rich experiences to help build their resume and support their career path.
I also agree that those experiences are here to stay. As I mentioned before, there are already some organizations that switched to virtual model of work, and probably in the future there will be more and more hybrid models of organization work, and hybrid model also requires certain virtual skills, and actually those hybrid model companies will have more opportunities to hire more students from all over the world. So this is just inevitable development.
Thank you. Really appreciate the insight. And another thing I think that often comes up is certainly in the circumstances now where there's just a tremendous amount of opportunities that students can consider. Veronica, for example, you had that list of all the different opportunities that are out there. I just wonder if you can talk a little more about just kind of helping students understand and weighing the various options and really encourage them to try to figure out what might be the best opportunity for them. Can I speak that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, we usually have a certain list of positions that our partners offer. And after the conversation with the student, we definitely take into account the student's interests, but sometimes we can offer something that is close but a little bit different. And sometimes students can determine this during the interview if they actually like it or not. Well, of course, it's very important what is their major and their minor and their interest and what skills they want to develop, but sometimes students are not sure what skills they can develop, and at the end of the internship, they're surprised how much they improved in some ways that they didn't know that they can improve. Because most of those internships, they do not require any previous work experience, so students don't have this work experience, so they don't really know what they're looking for. So that's why we're helping them and advising them on what could be a better opportunity for them. And if they have any questions on why do you offer us this opportunity, we'll always try to explain to them and give them career development advice.
Thank you. At least Jessica, you remember that a little bit? How do you help students consider various options and determinations about what might be a good one for them?
Yeah, well, I think speaking to what Jessica said about the interdisciplinary nature and how, these internship experiences and virtual experiences are not just for the business major, for example, but we really, we were very intentional at making sure that students from all majors could see this as an opportunity. And so it's not just, I'm going to go work for a company, but there are so many angles to it, and nonprofit organizations, different skill sets that students are developing. And like I mentioned, one of our students decided to change her major to marketing because she was doing so many things for the organization and really, felt like she loved that. And so, that's the kind of experience that we want to have for our students, that exploration, and that's what I think the virtual space gives them. They can discover things, they're not committing a lot to do this, but the outcome could be really surprising for them. And so, I think the fact that it's open to so many different disciplines and different ways to get involved is such a benefit.
Throughout, before the students are matched with the consulting project, in the application process, we do have a list of consulting projects that tend to repeat because organizations have many problems that need to be solved. So they can, while we may have students working with the same company, the focus is going to be different. But throughout the interview process, we do talk to the students about their interests, and if they have an interest that's not in our set list, we do talk to the student further about that, and we can develop an experience based around that interest too. So we do listen to the students.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And you know, and just kind of pulling back a little bit, the lens that, you know, I think it's really important to recognize that all three of you represent institutions that really consider this international connections to be very important to students. And you know, and so we're at a conference that's really talking about the importance of counseling every school. And so I'm just curious about when you work with students and you're helping them consider these possibilities, why do you think these international experiences, whether it be virtual, you know, out of necessity right now, or you know, in the future, hopefully more interpersonal experiences internationally, what do you think the long-term benefits of these experiences are? And can you talk about why a student can really, you know, really benefit significantly from these types of opportunities? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, that is the work that we do and that we have felt is so important, you know, because we believe in that cross-cultural exchange and how that really helps develop students as a whole and really is important to their education. You know, I really believe that we want every student to have an international experience, and so, you know, I think these have really been crafted in a way that that matches those goals.
Many students, they actually see themselves working internationally or continuing their education abroad in the future. And for them, it's a start, and it's actually only start possible now because they cannot travel. So, for example, some of our students, they plan to do master programs abroad, or like maybe particularly in China. So they want to learn more about the country and about the work sector. They are actually they want to work somewhere else, but they just want to develop themselves more in international organizations. So that's the way for them now.
I'll also add that if you asked any of us 2 years ago about virtual practical experiences, we wouldn't be prepared to answer. And I think many of the employers out there would feel the same way, you know, in considering a hybrid workplace or a fully virtual workplace. That just wasn't in everyone's cards. But now everybody, the pandemic has forced the envelope, and now virtual workplaces are part of most portfolios, or at least the discussion has happened. So preparing the students, you know, for this type of workplace is just crucial. It's just crucial for success and providing them with career options.
Thank you very much. So we are coming to the end of our session here. Have about 5 minutes or so left. So I guess, you know, what are some things that you might want to make sure that the audience who maybe they've seen this in person, you see this recording later, what's the one thing you want to make sure that is remembered from the session? Or what's the really key point that you want to make sure that the audience remembers? Can I start us off, Lisa?
Sure. You know, I think as Jessica mentioned, we wouldn't have really envisioned this. You know, I felt like years ago, I was really reluctant about a virtual experience because how could you really replicate what it's like to have in-person cultural exchange and that kind of experience? But I think, having these actually carried out has really shown us that this is feasible, this is possible, and it's impactful for students. And so, I'm excited for this to be a permanent part of what we offer to students, and I look forward to seeing more and more students be able to have these experiences, maybe before they enter college or throughout. Maybe it's something that could even be a requirement, so that students, as they're progressing through their college experience, is something that they will all have. So that's kind of my takeaway in terms of, after having run this a couple of times and structuring it and seeing it evolve, we're always kind of making little changes here and there to make the experience more smooth for students. But I really do think that this is something that's here to stay.
Thank you. Veronica, Jessica? Yeah. Go ahead, Jessica.
I will also hone in on the accessibility portion that we talked about at the end, and just the widespread acceptance of these experiences for all types of students, the ones that can go, but perhaps aren't ready for that either. While there may be the three barriers that are on the screen now, financial, personal, and legal, we have to remember that international experiences in person may not be the best fit for every individual, and they may not want that, but they do want the experience to be able to apply it to their career. So physically going somewhere may not be in their cards of interest, but the intercultural exchange is. So these experiences are going to be important, I think, for every student moving forward.
Okay, I just want to address to all the students, employers, and my colleagues, educators, that it's very important to stay proactive and keep an open mind, because actually there is no point for waiting for previous opportunities to return. It's very important to explore new opportunities for everyone and shape these kind of programs and work together on these opportunities for all of us. It's because I just see those virtual experiences and opportunity both for students and for the companies and organizations. So just don't afraid to try new things, because virtual experiences can be very practical and can give a lot of very great experience.
Thank you very much. And again, I really appreciate your willingness to be here today and to share your expertise with us. Thanks to all of you who have joined us today for this session. And again, hopefully you found some benefits, some key takeaways that can really be helpful for you and for your students in the future. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, and thanks to our phenomenal panelists. And again, I hope you enjoyed the rest of the day in Delhi or wherever else you are around the world. Thank you so much.